The bear market is all set. Watching, I wanted to say from distance, it's actually quite close, very intense. So let's see. But any further ado, please give a warm welcome to Principal at Rockaway, David Rilski.
Okay. Hi. Hi everyone. I'm David. I'm part of the Rockaway X investment team. I joined the team quite recently, and I'm very excited to be joined by amazing panelists: Zaki from DST, Yelena from Noble, and Kirilo from Binance. So can you guys maybe introduce yourselves and share a few sentences on your firms and the projects that you're involved in?
Yeah, I'm Zaki. Most people know me from all of the various things I've done in Cosmos over the last decade. But from an IST point of view, I am one of the directors at the Decentralized Cooperation Foundation, which is a foundation that's supporting the Agoric technology and blockchain and IST and interprotocol. And so, yeah, so, you know, I've spent, we at the DCF, we're sort of taking an increasing role in sort of the interprotocol development and like, and so, you know, that's why I'm wearing the interprotocol hat here.
Awesome. I'm Yelena. I'm the founder of Noble. Noble is a generic asset issuance chain, bringing native USDC to Cosmos and also other native assets in the future. And yeah, I've been a Cosmos contributor for the past 3 years or so. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Kirilo Khomyakov. I'm Ukrainian and I'm responsible for Ukraine and Central and Eastern Europe at Binance. And this is one of the fastest growing region in the world for us.
Thank you for the introduction. So to set the stage, I'd like to start talking about the current stages of stablecoins on Cosmos, because there's a lot of exciting things happening currently. Noble is about to launch USDC. Yesterday we had a speech from Dean, who talked about IST, who are soon launching the vaults that will basically enable us to mint IST with Atom. So I have one burning question to each of you that I'd like to start with, and then I'll open the panel for discussion. So I'll start with Yelena. So we obviously know that Noble is facilitating the management and the issuance of USDC on Cosmos, but can you tell us a bit more about the partnership and why does Circle actually need Noble to launch USDC? Why they can't do it themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, you know, Circle as an entity has been really interested in the Cosmos ecosystem for actually quite a number of years. I spoke a little bit about this yesterday, but IBC, as soon as it launched, they were very excited about what IBC would kind of enable, and you know, having this interoperability with all of these different Cosmos app chains, having USDC obviously easily transferable was very exciting. But at that time, they didn't really know exactly where to issue, and so obviously on you know, like a ecosystem like Ethereum or even Solana, it's a lot easier and more straightforward. You have this kind of monolithic base layer. You deploy a smart contract, you mint, you burn, you blacklist. You do all of those very straightforward things. But in Cosmos, obviously, we have this independent ecosystem of app chains. There's no one sort of logical place to issue. So that's really where Noble kind of came into the picture. It's a generic asset issuance chain. It does one very specific thing, and it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Question to you, Zaki. So as I mentioned, you know, IST is launching the vault. It's already available on like 7 exchanges. We all had the tickets in the goodie bags to vote for another collateral. So there's a lot of exciting things happening there. What does this mean for the Cosmos ecosystem and for IST as well?
Yeah, so again, I think it's very important that Cosmos sort of have an expanding set of choices of sort of IBC native stablecoin options. So, you know, IST was one of the earliest IBC native sort of stablecoins, especially in sort of the post-UST world. And vaults are basically sort of the vision of interprotocol is basically to be the stablecoin that has like sort of the most composable ways of minting it, right? So if you want to mint USDC, there's only one way to mint USDC, which is you send money to Circle's bank account. If you want to mint IST, right now you can use a variety of different bridge stablecoins and the PSM. When vaults launch, we're going to start adding new collateral types. So we'll start out with Atom, which is like sort of the logical place to go. But both liquid staking derivatives, staked Atom, that sort of thriving LSDFi ecosystem becomes like possible to sort of engage in vaults, other Cosmos, like large cap Cosmos assets like Osmosis. So again, the vision of Interprotocol is to be the stablecoin that has sort of the most possible ways of creating it. And that will make it sort of create an alignment between many different communities and many different parts of the Cosmos ecosystem.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So, question to you, Kirilo. Like we've all been following the Binance situation with Paxos, who stopped minting and issuing BUSD. So I think everyone would like to know what are the plans for BUSD going forward, and also if Binance has any plans of getting involved into the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. So stablecoin situation been bad last year, right? So we had 3 stablecoins, and now we ended up with 1, more or less. So it's good.
Which one is that?
It's good. It's good in a way that there is the good and strong industry leader that's basically reliable company, right? Respected company. But this structure is not stable and doesn't push for innovations, for competition. So I think that stablecoins as the basis for the blockchain development, we will see more and more new players coming, and we at Binance are welcoming it, not just on the BNB chain, but in any other blockchain as well. From the BUSD perspective, so BUSD is not a Binance product, right? That's the product of Paxos, US-based and US-regulated company that were not that pushed not to mint new BUSD. So eventually, the volumes of the BUSD is going down, and maybe it will be gone sooner or later. And we see that these volumes are migrating to other, stable coins, and it's okay. So from the industry perspective, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just happening. And I think that we're gonna see much more players, and not just in the USD-based stable coins, but in other currencies too.
Thank you. So I'd like to move now to talk a bit more about the use cases and the adoption of different stablecoins on the Cosmos ecosystem. But maybe to start with, Zaki and Yelena, can you please explain the differences and the advantages and disadvantages of IST and USDC?
Sure. So IST is minted by a decentralized protocol, a set of smart contracts that are running on the Agoric blockchain. And it has this sort of dynamic nature where new functionality can be added via upgrades to those smart contracts. It has a very active and fast-moving economic committee that is able to do things like adjust debt ratios and liquidation parameters, and ensure the stability of the system. All of this is sort of a very decentralization, transparent framework for doing things. And I think that's sort of what distinguishes IST from any other stablecoin in Cosmos, is just the transparency of the products, the fact that it's governed by smart contracts, and that those smart contracts are able to evolve through both governance of the build, the builder DAO, the build holders, and the economic committee.
Yeah, I think one thing to emphasize is obviously we need a multiplicity of stablecoins. We need more centralized stablecoins, we need more decentralized stablecoins. I think what IST is doing is obviously really important, from on the more kind of decentralized end of the spectrum. I think when it comes to an asset like USDC, obviously, kind of how you were saying, they're very reliable, they're very stable, they're very regulated. They do have public disclosures and audits on their reserves. It's very clear how much cash they have in the bank, that's collateralizing, or how much cash they have in their treasury, sorry, that's collateralizing their the USDC. I think like a better way, maybe the only other way to make it even more optimal is to have more like frequent disclosures around a lot of that treasury management. But at the end of the day, they're very, very transparent when it comes to things like, you know, their treasury and who manages it and the fact that it's BlackRock, et cetera. So I think from that perspective, it's very, very like positive, and you can sort of have like both ends of the spectrum, whether it's more of a centralized stablecoin, more of a decentralized stablecoin, and I mean also native USDC will be, you know, kind of backing IST as well through this like vault mechanism. So it's very much a, I would say, compatible kind of way of, you know, issuing more stables in the Cosmos ecosystem. It's not kind of either or; they kind of work together synergistically. So ultimately, it's very bullish, I think.
Yeah, USDC coming natively to IBC is going to enable scaling IST quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because of the parity stability module will support native USDC.
And what do you think are the use cases that will emerge once we bring USDC, IST, and potentially other stablecoins natively on Cosmos?
Yeah, I'm really excited about different fiat-backed stablecoins. So obviously, we're talking a lot about USDC, and I mean, there's so much demand for the US dollar in general. Something like 60% of the demand for the US dollar is actually outside of the United States. You know, for better or for worse, that's just the reality of our current kind of environment. I think that having a euro-backed stablecoin, having like other fiat currencies kind of coming to the picture. There's a really great project called Data-Chain, also in Cosmos. We're very excited to be working with them in the future to bring actually yen-backed stablecoins from the Japanese sort of market. So a lot of, I think, these like foreign kind of currencies coming in digitally, natively on-chain is extremely exciting, and I think Cosmos is obviously just well-positioned and the best environment to do something like that. Obviously, a lot of these assets will be multi-chain, they'll be on Polygon, Ethereum, et cetera, but Cosmos is definitely a great landing spot for a lot of these issuers, and so I'm personally excited to see a multiplicity of foreign currencies that are not just the US dollar, because even though it's such a powerful asset, it's a powerful global superpower, you know, it's representative of the U.S. government and the U.S. you know, economy. It's still not enough. So obviously, we have to think about, you know, other markets, other regions of the world. So yeah, I'm very excited to see that happen in Cosmos. So
I think another big opportunity that more native stables provide in Cosmos is, for instance, like community pools could start holding a significant portion of their treasury in stables, and I think that would be a big change to the Cosmos economy, because basically right now, you know, all of the big Cosmos chains have these like large community treasuries, but they're all in the native token, and they are, you know, pro-cyclical with the market, right? When the market is down, we have less money to invest, and you know that has been an ongoing challenge. And so, you know, having Cosmos native stablecoins really enables potentially a lot better capital formation dynamics inside of Cosmos.
That makes sense. So yesterday, Dean was on stage and he brought up the idea of IST being a primary gas token across all the Cosmos app chains, and this sounds like something that could potentially be big and super interesting. Can you elaborate on that? Do you think it's a viable option?
I think it's a very viable option. The new Kepler 2.0 upgrade makes it a lot easier to use alternative gas tokens in Kepler than it has been historically. And so Cosmos, you know, from the beginning, always supported multiple fee tokens. There was always the idea that there would be multiple fee tokens. It is a coordination challenge. Depending on how the app chain is set up, either you need to go to the validators and have them update their config files to support another fee token, or you need to go to governance and get a change in the supported fee tokens there. This is a great thing for DCF to do. You know, now that vaults are launched, or are about to launch once vaults have launched, you know, this kind of, you know, organizing coordination across multiple Cosmos chains around IST adoption is a exactly the sort of thing that the DCF should be spearheading, and I think, and we will, you know, get started on that coordination effort to get support in a lot of different chains.
Okay, so you're all obviously very much focused on building the technology, but how important do you think is the business development aspect? So how do you make sure that once the stable coins are launched on Cosmos, people will actually use them? How to make sure that there will be liquidity?
I mean, it's a great question. I think for USDC, there's a lot of existing demand. So obviously with Bridge USDC, that's already live. We have bridges in Cosmos like Gravity and Axelar, and so you see the demand, you see the volume, you see the activity. I mean, we saw what happened with Terra. I think it was something like $1 billion, like at the height, like TVL of UST or something like this. It was really quite dramatic, to be honest. So, I mean, we've seen like the highs, we've seen the lows, we see what is currently the reality, which is around the kind of the bridge assets like USDC coming to the ecosystem. So there's different ways to measure this. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as we have more Cosmos app chains launching, like Say and DYDX and Osmosis, and we have obviously Agoric doing really phenomenal things that even though they're already launched, they're growing and it's a growing market. I think at the end of the day, as long as Cosmos grows, these stablecoins will get adopted. It's sort of like a rising tide lifts all boats situation. So really for Noble, we don't succeed unless the rest of the ecosystem doesn't succeed. So we very much are interested to see a lot of these like fundamental kind of building blocks come into existence, having MetaMask support, having institutional custody support, obviously having native USDC. We're sort of here to kind of serve the rest of the ecosystem. So, I mean, it's really hard to exactly say what the volume will be, and I really don't like to speculate from that perspective, but there are ways we can kind of measure this, and so it'll definitely be interesting to see what will happen. I don't know, Zach, if you have any predictions or any.
Well, the most significant event for USDC is going to be DYDX's migration, right? DYDX represents about $400 or $500 million of USDC in the current V3 app, and if the migration goes well and the trading volume migrates, one would assume that would be roughly the floor of liquidity coming into the ecosystem, which would be very substantial.
Yep.
It would make Noble one of the largest issuers of USDC across all of the other chains.
Across the entire blockchain ecosystem.
Yeah, across the entire blockchain ecosystem.
I think second to Ethereum, there's about $700 million or so worth of USDC on Solana. So Solana's second, Ethereum's number one, like far outpasses Solana and the rest of the ecosystem. So we're hoping Noble will be in between them, but we'll see.
So you mentioned DYDX, which is obviously a big news for the space. But can you walk us through how do you actually work with a project like DYDX once they decide to launch on Cosmos? And do you actually work with them?
Yeah, so we've been working very closely with them for actually a number of months. So Noble, I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but really was a response to UST collapsing and DYDX saying we're going to bet our stack, our V4 stack on Cosmos. And so we really came to serve them and make sure that they, could properly kind of have their launch plans kind of be satisfied from the perspective of native USDC. So we've been working with them, I would say, from like almost day one. Like, there was a moment where Zaki, went to their offices in San Francisco and was sort of like advising the project, like, if you want to migrate from Starkware to Cosmos, these are the things you have to think about. One of those talking points on the agenda, it was obviously native USDC. So we're working very closely with them to make sure that whole process is smooth, that people can directly deposit USDC on an exchange, buy USDC, for example, on a centralized exchange, take that to DYDX almost like in a 1-2 click kind of fashion. So really making sure that the user experience makes sense. Antonio had this good tweet, I would say I'm in agreement, a couple days ago, where you shouldn't have to think about bridges, you shouldn't have to even think about Noble, it should just be a seamless process. They have a great user experience, they have great existing customer base, so we're just looking to satisfy that from the perspective of native USDC. It's quite straightforward. So yes, in summary, we're working very closely with them and making sure that their plans go smoothly, and definitely the USDC story is part of that, and we're very excited for that. So.
How about IST? Are you guys also working with DYDX?
Not currently. I think DYDX has like the current design of their perpetuals. Like their perpetuals exchange is single collateral, so they support just like one collateral asset. There is, you can design perp exchanges that are multi-collateral, and I'm not really sure whether or not DYDX has any current plans to do that. I think their current goal is just to get the sort of core application out there.
Okay. So Zaki, we know that you're one of the fathers of the ecosystem, been here since the very early days, and you're super passionate about it. Yelena, you're like 100% involved as well, as your project is pretty much focused on Cosmos only. So I'm curious about you, Kirilo. Like, Binance obviously monitors all the ecosystems, but what are the things that you look at once you actually decide to get involved into a specific ecosystem?
Yeah, so despite the fact that we have our own, let's say, ecosystem, we really encourage more and more new projects. There's the startups, more established project to come into our platform, and the only parameter that we are evaluating is whether or not it is of interest for our users, right? So if our users are interested to do it, we will be happy to add it. It's not about commissions or some profits. It's more about infrastructure and giving them everything they need in the in the ecosystem, all the different options, etc. So yeah, that's the only and the most important factor.
Okay, thank you. So to finish up the discussion, I'd like to talk a bit about stablecoins in general. Like, what's your guys' kind of take on the future long-term outlook of on stablecoins? What do you think about the tethers also increasing dominance, CBDCs? How do you see all of that evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think regulations play such an important part in in this market. Realistically, if you're promising to collateralize a stablecoin, whether that's with cash, whether that's with treasury bills, whether that's with other cryptocurrencies, there has to be some mechanism to sort of oversee how that works, and you have to inevitably at some point in the process get involved with regulators. So I think things like MiCA in Europe, I mean, I'd be curious from Binance's perspective how you feel about that. But things like MiCA in Europe, even some of the discussions, although they aren't totally positive, in the US around the Stablecoin Act, help to obviously create some sort of framework for issuing a stablecoin. I think if done right, like with MiCA, I think it's generally a positive development. You actually have like a proliferation of stablecoins. You have people more incentivized to issue stables and to do that in a way that makes sense for users, for their counterparties, whether that's a bank holding the collateral, whether that's a smart contract. Let's hope it's also, they take into consideration the kind of decentralized stablecoin space. So inevitably, I think that's something we need to consider. As challenging and as painful these conversations can sometimes be, it's extremely important, so.
Yeah, that's a wide topic. I'll try to make it short. So first of all, in terms of the stable coins in general, I don't think that the regulators should fight against it. I don't think there is any threat to any of the government with the stable coin. I actually believe that governments and regulators should compete with other countries to promote creating the stable coins, because it's kind of ties the blockchain to the local fiat currency. So it's actually vice versa process rather than a threat to the local regulators of not having controls. So basically, as more stable coins are backed in the local currency, the better for the government, and there is more interconnections with the fiat. The same for the CBDC, right? I don't actually think that this is a bad thing or something threatening for the blockchain industry in general, because in the end of the day, it will make a crypto adoption very high. It will grow crypto adoption significantly, and at minimum, the users will be like everyone in the country, let's say, where will be working, will be educated at least how to use wallets, how to use your private, your general keys, etc., etc. So it's good for the blockchain too. Yeah, and in terms of the stable coin, we really expect that there is going to be more stable coins soon and in the different currency, and this will be a big competition between countries now, because the regulation thing is an inevitable thing. And what's happening with MiCA here in Europe is amazing, because the stable coins regulation will hit in the summer next year. And all the countries, including the Czechia, government officials, parliament, association, ministry, we had a lot of meetings this week. They are all very proactive in this space. They understand that Czechia is a little bit behind some other country at this point of time, but they understand the importance to support the vibrant local businesses and the vibrant local communities and catch up on this regulation and better support crypto, better support opening accounts, make a more clear taxation, have a dialogue with the business. So it's kind of very positive here, but a long way to go, a lot of work to do. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things that I comment on the Tether question is, the most incredible thing to me about Tether is its adoption for sort of non-crypto native use cases. It's probably the technology that has come out of cryptocurrency that is most widely adopted in sort of like in the general public, in the wider community, especially in sort of the global South, South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. These are, when we started with, the vision of crypto is very much, again, trying to build global financial rails that were more accessible to people who were sort of excluded from the financial system. In many ways, Tether does a better job of banking the unbanked than anything else. And so as people who are working on other stablecoins and other stablecoin ecosystems, we should ask ourselves, what is working about Tether? Why is it that they are able to sort of penetrate into these markets? Why is it that people are actually able to use it as a medium of exchange in sort of ordinary life when so many other things in cryptocurrency have not achieved that penetration and have stayed more in sort of the speculative crypto native use cases? So that's thought. I guess I think central bank digital currencies and stablecoins in general have, they're one of the ways in which cryptocurrencies sort of interface most with geopolitics. And, if we start to see governments actually at scale issuing currency on public chains, I think that's a fundamental sea change in in sort of the political relationship between blockchain technology, and represents in many ways an elevation of blockchains as infrastructure. But there are many, many reasons to be concerned, worried, thinking about power dynamics and privacy. There's a lot of problems in terms of privacy, especially that we haven't really solved and could get much worse in the central bank digital currency world. But I do think that while things are slowing down in, let's say, the US, I think that you're going to see a large number of experimentation across sort of the Middle East and Asia in these areas.
Thank you. So maybe last question, as Jelena, you mentioned the MiCA regulation, a question to Kirill, but maybe to all of you actually. So does Binance actually see it as a positive development? Are you working closely with the regulators to implement this? I mean, we've also seen with PSD2 and kind of the open banking that it took 5-6 years from to kind of implement the regulation. So I'm wondering if this is going to be the same with MiCA.
Yeah, so I touched a little bit about that before, but let me speak a little bit more about that. So basically, the MiCA is very important, and I will be talking specifically about here in Czechia. That's the most important for our audience. So the regulator is not yet identified, right? But most probably the regulator will be the National Bank. And also, most probably, the Ministry of Finance will be responsible for MiCA terms implementation into the local regulation. But just implementing MiCA is not, it doesn't really mean the great support for the industry. So the current problems should be solved, right? So the local companies cannot open the bank accounts. There is no clear taxation, as I said, and there is no dialogue between the government and the businesses and users. So it's kind of in the gray zone. So these three things, I think, is the key things that needs to be solved here in Czechia and in all the other European countries as well, because there is going to be also a competition between European countries on how they are crypto-friendly, how they support the licensing process, so that the businesses within the Europe will be migrating between the countries and will be deciding where are they getting their license and where are they going to pay taxes, and how the government and regulators approach to this will be key for the companies to decide when they want to land. However, I still believe that that's a great step forward because it's a first global regional regulation that will basically combine all the European countries and will make businesses here most cost effective, more transparent, more clear, more effective. So we absolutely support MiCA, and we work with in European Commission too, and all the other countries to help them implement MiCA and create more opportunities for the European countries. More investments, more companies, more jobs, more taxes, better economy in the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks.